What if I told you that one of the 10 lost tribes of Israel has been found? Right now, at this very moment, something extraordinary is happening in northeastern India that's sending shockwaves through the archaeological and theological world. The Bnei Menashe community, a group of over 10,000 people living in remote villages along the Myanmar-India border, are claiming something that sounds absolutely impossible. They say they are direct descendants of the biblical tribe of Manasseh, one of the 10 lost tribes that vanished from history 2,700 years ago. And here's what makes this even more incredible. After nearly 3 millennia of exile, scattered across continents and hidden in the mountains of Asia, they're finally returning home to Israel. Thousands have already made the journey. Thousands more are desperately waiting for rescue. But here's what will shock you most. This isn't just some far-fetched claim or wishful thinking. In 2005, Israel's chief rabbi officially recognized them as genuine descendants of the lost tribe. DNA studies are backing up their story, their ancient customs and traditions preserved for over 2,000 years without any contact with other Jewish communities are so remarkably similar to biblical Judaism that scholars are calling it miraculous. And if that wasn't mind-blowing enough, consider this: their return to Israel is happening right now in our lifetime, exactly as the end times prophecy predicted. We're not talking about ancient history here. We're talking about biblical prophecy unfolding before our very eyes. This isn't just about history, it's about prophecy manifesting in real time. Could we be witnessing the literal fulfillment of end-time scripture? Could this be one of the clearest signs that we're living in the last days? Stay with me, because what you're about to discover will change how you view both biblical prophecy and the times we're living in. The story of the Bnei Menashe isn't just remarkable, it's prophetic, and it's happening right now. To understand why this discovery is so earth-shattering, we need to go back to the beginning. The nation of Israel originally consisted of 12 tribes descended from the 12 sons of Jacob. These weren't just family groups, they were entire nations, each with their own territory, their own inheritance, their own destiny, and God's plan. But in 722 BC, everything changed. The mighty Assyrian Empire swept down like a flood, conquering the northern kingdom of Israel and carrying away 10 of these tribes into exile. They were scattered across the known world, dispersed among the nations, and then they simply vanished from recorded history. For over 2,700 years, their fate remained one of history's greatest mysteries. Now the tribe of Manasseh holds special significance in biblical prophecy. Manasseh was one of Joseph's sons, blessed directly by Jacob himself. In his dying blessing, Jacob declared that Manasseh would become a great people. But more than that, Manasseh is specifically mentioned in the book of Revelation as one of the tribes from which the 144,000 servants of God will be sealed in the last days. For centuries, only the tribes of Judah and Benjamin remained visible to the world, forming what we know today as the Jewish people, Ashkenazi Jews from Europe, Sephardic Jews from Spain and North Africa, and Mizrahi Jews from the Middle East. But the other 10 tribes seem to have disappeared completely, leading to endless speculation and theories about their whereabouts. Some scholars suggested they had been completely assimilated into other cultures. Others believed they had maintained their identity, but were simply hidden in remote corners of the world. Still others connected their return to end times prophecy, pointing to verses that speak of God gathering his people from the 4 corners of the earth. But what happened to those lost tribes? Did they simply vanish from history, absorbed into the civilizations that conquered them? Or have they been hiding in plain sight, maintaining their identity and their faith across millennia, waiting for the appointed time to reveal themselves? What we've discovered about the Bnei Menashe suggests the answer is far more incredible than anyone imagined. Their story reads like something out of an epic novel, but every word is documented history. Picture this: after the Assyrian conquest, their ancestors began an incredible journey that would span continents and centuries. Historical records and oral traditions tell us they were first exiled to the regions around modern-day Iran and Afghanistan. But their journey didn't end there. Over the following centuries, they migrated eastward through Central Asia, eventually crossing into China, then moving through Tibet and into Myanmar. Finally, they settled in the remote mountainous regions along the Myanmar-India border in the states of Manipur and Mizoram. For over 2,000 years they lived in complete isolation from the rest of the Jewish world, and here's what makes their story absolutely mind-boggling. Despite being cut off from all Jewish contact for 2 millennia, they maintained traditions that are remarkably similar to ancient biblical Judaism. They observed a weekly Sabbath resting on the 7th day. They celebrated festivals that mirror the biblical Passover, complete with the sacrifice of animals and the eating of unleavened bread. They practiced ritual purity laws that echo the Levitical codes. They even maintained prayers for restoration to Zion, prayers for a homeland they had never seen but somehow remembered for centuries. They maintained these practices without any contact with other Jewish communities. But how is that even possible? How does a people preserve such specific religious practices across thousands of miles and thousands of years without any outside reinforcement? What they discovered next will give you chills. In 1951, a tribal leader named Chela had a prophetic dream. In this dream, he saw a vision of the Jewish homeland being restored and his people returning to their ancestral land. But remember, this was 1951, just 3 years after Israel's modern establishment. How could a man living in complete isolation in the mountains of India have such a vision? When Christian missionaries first brought Bibles to their region in the 1950s and they read the Hebrew scriptures in their own language, they were stunned. The stories, the customs, the religious practices they had maintained for generations were all there in black and white. But the most shocking discovery was yet to come. Their tribal name, Manasseh, was virtually identical to the biblical Manasseh. This wasn't a coincidence, this was providence. Here's where this story takes a turn that will make your jaw drop. What started as oral tradition and religious practice was about to be validated by the highest Jewish authorities in the world. In 2005, after years of investigation and study, Israel's Sephardic chief Rabbi Shlomo Amar made an unprecedented declaration. He officially recognized the Bnei Menashe as genuine descendants of the lost tribe of Manasseh. This wasn't just a religious opinion, it was an official pronouncement that opened the doors for thousands of people to make Aliyah, the sacred journey home to Israel. Since that recognition, over 4,000 Bnei Menashe have already immigrated to Israel, with many more in the process. But the validation didn't stop with religious authority. DNA studies conducted by researchers have found genetic markers consistent with Middle Eastern Jewish populations among the Bnei Menashe. Linguistic analysis has revealed Hebrew and Aramaic influences in their ancient songs and prayers. Even more remarkably, the surname Manasseh, a clear derivative of Manasseh, has appeared among Israeli communities who have traced their lineage back to these regions. Let me share just one personal story that captures the profound emotion of this return. Sarah Manasseh, a 78-year-old grandmother from Manipur, had dreamed her entire life of seeing Jerusalem. When she finally stepped off the plane at Ben Gurion Airport, she fell to her knees and kissed the ground, tears streaming down her face. "I never thought this day would come," she said. "But God remembered his promise to our fathers. Families separated for generations are being reunited. Children who grew up hearing stories of their ancient homeland are now walking the streets of Jerusalem. It's a restoration that's both deeply personal and profoundly prophetic. But their story isn't over. In fact, it's reached a critical juncture that demands immediate attention. In 2023, devastating ethnic violence erupted in Manipur state, specifically targeting the Bnei Menashe community. Synagogues have been destroyed, homes have been burned, lives have been lost. Right now, at this very moment, approximately 6,500 Bnei Menashe are living in refugee camps, desperately awaiting rescue and safe passage to Israel.